10 common and costly negotiation mistakes that can sink your success. Part 1 of a 2-part series. All right, so when negotiators get mediocre results, sometimes they or their boss blames the economy, the weather, or the other company, when the real problem is that no one took the negotiation process seriously enough to systematically plan for the contract negotiations. Some people take a stab at it, but it's not a substitute for the real preparation that goes into negotiating a contract. Now, in my experience, there are 10 common mistakes that business people routinely make before they enter into or during a contract negotiation. Let's see if any of them resonate with you. All right, 1, they react to the other party. They don't take matters into their own hands. They're not in control of themselves, the data, the situation. They don't have a roadmap strategy that tells them where they're going to go with the negotiations, and they certainly don't have a situational strategy that tells them how this particular phone call or meeting will further the negotiations to their benefit. So we don't want to do that. We want to be able to control the arc of the conversation, and important web meetings and definitely in-person meetings need to have a plan and a strategy of all their own. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs to be something. All right, number 2, sometimes negotiators overrate their abilities. So a lot of people will tell me that they know how to make trade-offs, or they know what the zone of potential agreement is, or they've made counteroffers, and yet their managers call me in to do training and they say, Jeanette, we're not seeing it. I interviewed them, they talked a good game, but I'm not seeing the results that I want. So I offer a negotiation skills assessment to really understand what the negotiator's abilities are versus what their perceptions of what their abilities are. When a negotiator overestimates their abilities, they often underestimate the other party's abilities, and sometimes that could leave the one overestimating their abilities with the inaccurate information, the poor strategy, and the lackluster results. Okay, number 3, they make a lot of assumptions. They don't have good data, they work off the back of an envelope, they assume they know what's going on when they really don't. So be very careful. Hunches are different than assumptions. A hunch is something that you test. An assumption you act upon without even testing it because you know it's already true. So just be careful about assumptions. Go into negotiations with many more hunches. 4, people think that their counterpart has no choice but to work with them. And this goes both ways. This is customers and suppliers. And when negotiators go in thinking you have no choice but to work with me, man, do people get a little bent out of shape. It's a really awkward place. I've been on the customer end, and I've seen buying organizations award work to the non-incumbent because of that attitude. I've seen suppliers not want to put forth a proposal because of that attitude. So be very careful about the you have no choice but to work with me attitude. People have a choice. May not be this moment, but trust me, I've seen companies create really interesting best alternative to a negotiated agreement, meaning I don't have to negotiate with you because I'm going to go do this other thing. And I've seen suppliers walk away from the table. So be careful with that one. And 5, make concessions when you could have made trade-offs. Now, a concession is something that you give up without expecting anything in return. It's a gift. I love concessions, but don't whine. Don't ask for change orders. Don't switch out your team. Don't blame somebody else. You offered it. I don't have an obligation to reciprocate unless you make a trade-off. A trade-off is something of value that you give in exchange for something of value. All right, do you see the exchange? A trade-off triggers the obligation of reciprocity. So be careful that you're not making concessions, but that you're making trade-offs. Trade-offs can be really challenging in a complex contract scenario. All right, so not surprisingly, managers and leadership focus on the results they want, but they don't often know what skills are required to get those results. So think about me the next time you see one of these mistakes, and I'd be happy to work with you. Now, if you're interested in part 2, follow the link here.